The world outside moved in colors he could no longer see. The air felt thick, like silence made of fear. The old clock ticked without mercy as the soft voice echoed. "You may never see again." The words cut through the quiet like a blade. His fingers brushed the edge of the bed, trembling but steadying themselves again. No cry came, no shout. Only a deep breath. Slow, heavy, full of secrets no one heard. Somewhere inside him, a whisper rose. If sight is gone, then truth will learn to listen. The man in the white coat spoke slowly, almost tasting each word before letting it fall. "You must be strong," he said. "The eyes may close, but life does not end." The patient nodded. His lips moved like they wanted to answer, but no sound came. Only silence. A silence that carried pain and something deeper. Suspicion. Under the quiet mask of weakness, a thought grew like a seed. Blindness can hide the watcher better than darkness ever could. His hands trembled. Not from fear, but from what he already knew. Then came the sound of gold bangles and bright cloth rustling like wind in tall grass. A woman's wail filled the air, loud and wild. "Oh, my husband! My strong man! What will I do now?" Her cry broke through the hospital air like a song meant for an audience. Nurses hurried in, hands on her shoulders, faces full of pity. One offered water, another whispered comfort. The woman's voice rose higher. "Why, oh, why must the gods take his sight?" But the man sat still, hands folded, head bowed. Not a single tear left his eyes, only quiet watching through blindness that might not be blindness at all. When the white coat was gone and the door clicked shut, her crying stopped. Just like that, through the open window, the sound of an engine purred, smooth, proud, alive. A red car shimmered in the sunlight like fire calling her name. Her lips curved, almost smiling. She wiped her eyes, straightened her cloth, and whispered under her breath, "Maybe God opens new doors after all." Her voice carried no grief now, only hunger for what glowed beyond the glass. The man turned his face slightly, hearing her words. His hand gripped the bedsheet tighter. A storm brewed behind his calm silence. And somewhere in that quiet room, the gods began to listen. The room filled with the soft sound of footsteps and the smell of ripe fruit. A quiet voice broke the silence. "Brother, how do you feel?" A faint smile curved the patient's lips. Still breathing. Still learning. Between them stood a figure in gold, voice sweet but sharp. "You care too much, Kwesi." The visitor's eyes dropped for a moment, and his words stumbled. "Care is what brothers owe each other." The woman's fingers brushed the table, tapping once, twice. "Some care too deeply for what isn't theirs." The man looked up, startled, but said nothing. The one on the bed simply listened, head tilted slightly, as if his blindness gave him a clearer sight than eyes could ever offer. The air thickened. The visitor moved closer, lifting his brother's arm gently. "Let me help you sit." The patient obeyed, calm and quiet. But between the hands that lifted and the eyes that lingered, something unseen moved. A glance, too long, too soft, passed like a whisper through the air. The visitor looked away quickly, his chest tightening. The woman's lips pressed together, holding secrets behind them. The patient smiled faintly, not at anyone, but at what he could already sense. His world had no light, yet he saw everything. Night came softly. Crickets sang outside like they carried old warnings. When the world slept, the visitor's voice broke the dark. "Brother, I don't trust her heart. Wealth blinds more than eyes ever can." A quiet pause answered him. Then slowly a voice replied, steady and cold. "Maybe blindness will open the eyes of truth." "You mean, pretend?" The voice turned firm now. "Yes. Let love face the test of darkness." The visitor's breath caught. He stared, unsure. But the decision had already been made. The gods themselves might have felt the shift that night. Morning rose, carrying songs of new plans and hidden eyes. Days passed like silent drums, each beat marking deceit. She entered again, humming lightly, her gold cloth bright as ever. "Don't worry, my dear. I'll handle everything." Her words rolled like honey, but her hands moved fast, sliding open drawers that did not belong to her. The jingle of coins danced faintly in her ears. Her smile widened, but not from love. The man on the bed heard every sound, the hum, the drawer, the rustle of greed. He said nothing. He only turned his face toward her and smiled, as if blindness was now his greatest weapon. And somewhere in the house, the spirits of truth began to stir. A deep, steady voice rose through the air, carrying the weight of generations. In a land where love often bows to wealth, even the blind can see who truly cares. The sound rolled like distant thunder, followed by the beat of drums, slow, heavy, and knowing. Each drumbeat echoed the steps of fate walking closer. The voice faded, but its warning stayed behind, hanging like a shadow no wind could lift. The man sat still, head lowered, breath steady. The nurse's hands trembled as she removed the bandage, the last veil between darkness and light. Yet his eyes stayed shut. Silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of cloth falling to the floor. He said nothing. He moved nothing. Only his mind stirred, sharp, alive, waiting. To the world he was blind, but it was not his sight that was gone. It was the truth of others that was about to be revealed. The plan had begun. Outside, soft footsteps moved quickly down the hall. A quiet laugh followed, short, sweet, and cruel. "He can't see me now," she whispered to someone unseen. The words slid through the walls like snakes. Inside, the man tilted his head, the corner of his mouth curving slightly. "Yes," he murmured under his breath. "Let's see who truly sees." The air grew heavy again, like the calm before a storm. Days later, the mansion burst to life. Music filled the air, drums and flutes weaving together like fire and wind. The people danced, their laughter bright and wild. Voices rose praising him, the man whose hands turned sand to gold. "Blessed is he," they said, "who builds wealth from nothing." He smiled faintly, his cane resting beside him, eyes hidden once more behind dark glass. Beside him, the woman shone like the moon, her laughter sweet as palm wine. She leaned close, whispering greetings to the guests, her bracelets ringing softly. But her eyes moved restlessly, not toward her husband, not toward the blessings, only searching the faces, hungry to see who was watching her. When one man's gaze lingered a heartbeat too long, her smile deepened. The drums outside grew louder, their rhythm quick and strong, like a warning from the ancestors themselves. And beneath all the noise, the blind man sat still, listening. He heard the clink of glasses, the whisper of greed, the soft lies dressed as laughter. Every sound painted a picture clearer than sight. Somewhere deep within he knew. The feast was not just of food and faces, but of truth and betrayal. And before the drums stopped beating, the masks would fall. The table glittered with gold cups and silver spoons. Laughter rose like smoke, warm but choking. A proud voice said, "Love is sweet, but money keeps it alive." Rings flashed, friends leaned closer, and laughter rolled again. The servants stood still, their eyes low but their ears open. A quiet man at the end of the table heard every word. His smile stayed, but his heart turned silent. A small hand tugged at a bright sleeve. "Mama, father is listening?" The woman waved her off. "Let him listen. He knows I speak the truth." The child's eyes dropped to her plate. The man looked at her, the only one who still spoke with kindness in a house that had forgotten simple hearts. At the far side, a young man lifted his wrist high, showing his friends the gold that caught every light. "My father's name opens every door," he said, laughing louder than his worth. The man watched from afar, his eyes tired. "He wears my name, not my values," he whispered. Outside, the drums began to rise, their beat matching the weight in his chest. In the corner, a pair of gentle eyes followed all. She moved quietly, her steps soft, her gaze sharper than gold. She saw the woman's pride, the boy's hollow laughter, the man's heavy silence. "Sir, shall I clear the table?" she asked, her voice humble, carrying truth in every word. The man nodded slowly. In a house where words had turned into noise, Her tone alone sounded like peace. The drums outside did not stop. They spoke what no one else dared, that the house built on gold was starting to shake. The night carried a heavy silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the palms. A quiet voice spoke, steady and wise. "Brother, your house is full, but your heart is empty." The man beside him looked away. "You think my love is blind?" he asked. The voice answered, low and certain, "Not yet. But soon, it must be, if you wish to see who stands with you in darkness." The words lingered like smoke in the air, leaving behind the taste of truth no gold could hide. Sleep did not come that night. Laughter from the party still echoed in his ears, sweet but sharp. He heard again the voice of wisdom. "You will never know who truly loves you until the gold fades." His eyes closed, but his thoughts stayed awake. A plan began to take shape, quiet and dangerous, like a seed buried deep in the earth. Morning came with bright light and heavy hearts. The table was filled with food, but joy was missing. Suddenly a hand went to the chest and the strong man fell. Shouts rose. "Somebody help!" Another voice cried, "Get him to the hospital now!" Fear filled the air, but each heart feared for something different. One feared losing comfort, another feared losing inheritance, and only one feared losing love. At the hospital, silence returned. A man in white spoke slowly. "The stress has taken his sight." Gasps followed. "Blind? My husband?" The wise friend stepped forward, meeting the fallen man's hidden eyes. Between them passed a small, secret smile, the kind that carries both pain and power. The seed had begun to grow. Days turned into whispers. When he returned home, the air felt cold, even under the sun. Servants spoke in low tones. The woman came forward, her voice soft but strange. "Don't worry, my love. I'll take care of you." He nodded, listening more to her tone than her words. Beneath the calm, he heard distance, pride, and fear. And he knew the real test had just begun. The drums were quiet when he entered the house again, the echo of his cane soft against the floor. A voice greeted him, sweet but strained. "Welcome home, my husband." He nodded, his face calm. "I may not see, but I still feel who stands near me." Around them, whispers floated like dust, talk of a great man now walking by sound instead of sight. Pride had left the house, replaced by uneasy silence. In the days that followed, the compound changed. A young man grumbled as his sister wiped their father's chair. "Why do we act like he's dying?" he muttered. She looked up sharply. "Because he's our father." From the kitchen, a gentle voice rose softly. "The sun hides, but it still shines." The words carried far, quiet but firm, settling over the room like truth too old to argue. Time passed. The woman sighed as she placed food before the man. "How long must I pretend everything is fine?" she asked the air. The answer came calm and steady. "Pretend only lasts till truth knocks." Her eyes rolled toward the ground. "A blind man cannot lead a home," she murmured under her breath. But even as she spoke, she felt the weight of her own words. Night came with secrets. A drawer opened, metal clicked, and greed slipped into silence. "Brother, what are you doing?" The question came from the doorway. The reply was smooth. "Medicine. He needs money." But the bulge in his pocket spoke louder than his words. The house, once filled with laughter, now hid shadows that walked on 2 feet. Morning returned, gentle and slow. A soft voice guided him forward. "Step to the left, sir. The mat is near your." The sound of an engine faded near the compound, followed by quiet footsteps. A man wiped grease from his hands as a woman hurried to meet him. "Not here," she whispered. "He's inside." A small smirk curved his lips. "Blind men see nothing." Their laughter mingled, light yet sharp, like hidden knives gleaming in the sun. Inside, silence sat like a shadow. The man with the cane sat still, his ear tilted toward the thin wall that separated truth from lies. Then came her voice, low, certain, cruel. "He's useless now, Kojo. Soon everything will be ours." Each word struck harder than the last, tearing through the soft cloth of patience. His fingers curled around his cane until the wood creaked beneath his grip. A voice rose in his memory, deep and warning. "You will see true hearts when your eyes close." He drew a slow breath, steady as a drumbeat. "Let her show her face in full daylight," he murmured. The air was heavy with silence, but his heart did not break. Not yet. He sat still, choosing calm over rage, waiting like a lion in tall grass. The days burned on. One hot afternoon, the scent of oil and perfume drifted together in the air. Soft laughter followed. "He's resting. Don't worry." Then the sound, quick, forbidden, and bold, the kind that steals trust without shame. Behind dark glasses, his fists tightened. The room felt smaller, his heartbeat louder than the silence that followed. A moment later, his voice broke the air, calm but sharp enough to cut through lies. "Who's with you?" A breath caught in the corner. "Just Abba, my dear." His head tilted slightly. "Then tell Abba I can still smell another man's breath." The words hung like thunder before rain. The intruder slipped away, leaving the house drowning in stillness. And in that silence, judgment had already begun its work. Under the cover of night, silence ruled the air. The voice came softly, almost like a secret the stars already knew. "It's time." Somewhere beyond the wall, another voice answered, steady and low. "The ancestors will watch." The message carried more than words. It carried weight, the kind that could break or build destinies. From the shadows, another figure stood still, listening. No movement, no breath wasted, only a nod, strong and sure. "Let them show their true dance tonight," she whispered, her tone firm, her heart unshaken. The darkness seemed to pulse with hidden meaning as the quiet plan took shape, each beat syncing with the drum of something long buried, but ready to rise. Before the sun touched the sky, two figures returned. The air felt thick, like it was holding its breath for what was about to unfold. Their hands worked fast, placing a small eye of truth where no one would see, behind a carved bowl that had heard many secrets before. "When truth dances, no lie can hide," came the soft murmur like a prayer to the spirits. A faint smile followed, not of joy but of certainty. "Let the drums of truth beat," came the answer, calm but edged with fire. The moment held power, a quiet readiness that only those who have suffered understand. By nightfall, laughter broke the air. Loud, careless, proud, a glass lifted high. "To our freedom." The sound of wine spilling, of feet tapping, of joy too wild to notice the eyes watching. The voice that followed was sharp, mocking. "The old fool sleeps in blindness." Laughter echoed, rolling through the walls like thunder before rain. It carried arrogance, the kind that comes before a fall. But beyond that laughter, something else stirred. A silent knowing, a storm gathering beneath calm faces. And though no one said it aloud, the night itself seemed to listen, waiting for truth to make its move. The drums of laughter grew louder as feet moved to the rhythm of greed. The dance began slow, almost graceful, but soon turned wild, like fire fed by stolen oil. The air between them pulsed with hunger for more. "Soon, the business, the house, even the cars will be mine," came the whisper, slick with desire. A hand lifted hers, a kiss sealed their promise. "You are already my queen," came the reply. Above their joy, unseen and silent, a tiny red light blinked, steady, patient, watching like the eye of justice itself. Far away, a faint sound broke the silence. Laughter, sharp-cutting, unholy. The old one stirred, his hand trembling around his cane. Each note of laughter pierced deeper than a blade. A voice tried to hold him back, soft, pleading, "Please." But his answer came strong and calm. "No, the time for blindness is over." Each step forward carried years of pain, years of trust turned to dust. The air shifted when the cane struck wood. A single sound, thud! That silenced every false laugh in the room. Cups trembled. Hearts froze. The power that had been mocked now stood before them, unshaken. The laughter died like a candle in the wind. He straightened his back, slow and sure, and lifted the dark shield from his face. His eyes glowed, fierce, wet, burning with both fury and sorrow. "A blind man," came the voice heavy and raw, "saw more than you ever did." Gasps filled the air, sharp as lightning. "You can see?" The words barely escaped trembling lips. "Yes," came the growl that followed, low and thunderous. "I saw betrayal in daylight, deceit in my own home." The silence that followed was thick with fear. "It's not what you think." The protest was weak, crushed under the roar that answered it. "Silence. My blindness was a test and you both failed." The final blow came not from the cane, but from truth itself, when another voice burst in, breathless, triumphant. "We have it all on camera!" And at that moment, the house that once hid lies now echoed with the sound of justice rising. The room fell silent as the weight of truth crushed every false heart. She fell to her knees, tears breaking free like rain after drought. "Father, I tried to warn you," she cried, her voice trembling with guilt and pain. The old one knelt beside her, his hand steady as it lifted her chin. "The tree bends but does not break," he said softly, the strength of wisdom shining through his voice. Another stepped forward, touching his arm with reverence. "You see now, sir, truth never hides." Their eyes met, not in sorrow, but in the quiet understanding that pain had not destroyed them, only shaped them. Pain had not destroyed them, only shaped them. Across the room, shame took form. The proud woman covered her face, trembling like dry leaves before a storm. "Please." She tried to speak, but her voice broke under the weight of her own deceit. The man beside her turned, desperate to escape the eyes that no longer needed sight to see. But the path was blocked. "Leave my house before the sun rises," came the cold command, each word sharp as iron. From outside the drums began, slow, deep, unyielding. Doom, doom, doom. The sound rolled through the air like the heartbeat of the ancestors themselves, carrying judgment with every beat. She fell, her knees striking the ground with the force of regret. "Forgive me," she wailed, her hands clutching at the emptiness between them. He turned away, voice firm as stone. "Forgiveness belongs to the gods, not to thieves of love." The one who had seen too much lowered his head, whispering, "Justice has spoken," and in that moment, the house that once held lies became the temple of truth. Morning crept in quietly, soft and golden. The old one stood by the window, eyes open, face calm. Light touched his skin like a blessing. Two loyal hearts stood beside him, steady, unbroken. His voice came low, almost a whisper. "Now I truly see." The drums outside grew faint, their echo fading into the gentle song of birds. The ancestors, having witnessed all, finally rested. By sunrise, the village was alive with whispers. From the market stalls to the palm wine stands, tongues moved faster than the morning wind. "The proud wife of the merchant has fallen," murmured the women, pounding yam with restless hands. "She built her house on gold, not on love." The old men, sitting beneath the iroko tree, shook their heads slowly. "When greed enters the home," one said, "peace flies away." The words carried through the streets like dust on dry wind, touching every ear, staining every name tied to shame. At the mansion gates, two figures stood in the heat of judgment. Faces pale, eyes lowered, they met the gaze of a crowd hungry for truth. The betrayed one stepped forward, calm as a stone in the river. "You betrayed not only me," he said, voice steady and clear, "but the spirit of our home." The man beside the woman lowered his head, his mouth too heavy for defense. Tears streaked her face, drying before they touched the ground. Around them, whispers turned to silence, and silence turned to shame. Days later, the house of judgment opened its doors. The old one walked in with quiet dignity, the sound of his cane echoing louder than any cry. Without a word, he signed the paper that ended what love once began. She fell to her knees, her voice trembling like a dying flame. "Please, give me another chance." His answer was soft but final. "The river does not flow backward." The judge nodded, and the people murmured in agreement. Justice, like dawn, had broken again. In the quiet of evening, a son knelt before his father. His pride was gone. Only regret remained. "Father, I was lost in greed. Forgive me." The old one's sigh was long, like wind through an empty hut. "You are my blood," he said, "but a man must earn his name again." He handed him a broom. "Start with humility. Clean what your pride dirtied." The young man took it with shaking hands, his tears falling where dust once lay. As days turned to weeks, the house began to breathe again. The faithful one worked beside him, moving with quiet grace. No complaint, no boasting, only service that spoke louder than words. The old one watched her, seeing in her what gold could never buy. "You served with heart, not with eyes on gold," he said. Signing a document, he placed it before her. "From today, you are my partner." She bowed deeply, voice low and steady. "May the ancestors bless your sight." And so, the home once built on pride stood firm again, not on riches, but on truth. In the distance, drums began to beat, slow and proud, carrying the sound of renewal through the land. As evening settled over the land, the daughter's voice rose like a soft drumbeat among the gathering. Her tone carried the weight of memory and the peace of healing. "Our home fell when pride entered," she said, her words weaving through the night air, "and rose again through truth." The little ones leaned closer, their eyes round as moons. "Remember this," she continued, "humility is the light that never blinds." The elders nodded in quiet approval. Somewhere in the distance, faint drums answered her words, keeping rhythm with the wisdom being passed from heart to heart. Weeks drifted by like calm rivers after the storm. Laughter began to return, bright and clear. The halls that once echoed with tension now carried songs of peace. The scent of fresh yam stew floated through the compound, mingling with the sound of soft greetings and open hearts. The master walked through his home slowly, his lips curving into a rare smile. "Now," he said, voice steady with gratitude, "this house can see again." One bright morning, he stood before a crowd at the local hospital, flanked by 2 loyal souls. A banner of hope waved in the wind as he placed a heavy envelope in the chief's hands. "This foundation," he declared, "is for those who live in shadow, for true blindness is not of the eyes but of the heart." The crowd erupted in applause. The chief, wise with years, blessed him with cola nuts, saying, "The ancestors smile on the man who turns pain into light." Far from the joy of the village, a lonely figure walked along a dusty road. Her feet were bare, her jewelry clutched tight against her chest. Each step was heavy with regret. "Money faded," she whispered. "Love did not wait." Children nearby sang a simple tune, their voices pure as wind. "The hand that feeds on greed always ends empty." She stopped to listen, tears tracing the dust on her cheeks, before walking on into the fading light. Back at the mansion, peace sat like a gentle spirit. Beneath the old mango tree, the man who had once tested love sat quietly, watching the world he had rebuilt. Nearby, laughter rose, light, free, and unbroken. He leaned back, closing his eyes to the warmth of the evening sun. "The eyes of truth," he murmured, "never lose their sight." The drums in the distance slowed to silence, and the air carried only calm. The tale at last had found its rest. Under the soft rise of morning light, calm finally settled over the compound. The air, once heavy with anger and noise, now carried only peace. The wind brushed gently through the mango trees, and birds sang like they were blessing the silence. The air felt new again, as if it had forgiven every sound of pain that had once lived there. The voice of wisdom rose quietly through the peace, saying, "When truth is spoken, storms bow their heads, and calm returns to every heart." A man stepped forward, his cane tapping softly against the ground. Each step spoke of strength, not weakness. His eyes, once covered by darkness, now shone with quiet light. The sun kissed his face like an old friend. From the doorway a voice whispered, "You walk like a man who carries no darkness." A smile touched his lips. "Because truth became my light," he said, and the morning seemed to nod in agreement. Far away, the sound of drums began to rise. Slow, deep, and ancient. Each beat told a story older than any man could remember. The voice of the ancestors filled the air. Blindness, it said, is not always of the eyes. Some see the world but miss the truth. Some look at others but never look within. The drums answered, each thump echoing the rhythm of those words. Steady, patient, eternal. The cane tapped again, this time not to guide, but to remind. This cane once led a blind man, he said softly, but now it reminds a wise one. A quiet chuckle came nearby. Even the stick learns its master's path. Their laughter drifted into the air like smoke after a fire, gentle and pure. The voice of the tale deepened once more, its tone calm and knowing. Truth walks with open eyes, it said. It does not sleep. It waits. Images flashed like shadows of memory, a greedy hand, a lying tongue, a heart full of regret. All faded just as quickly as they appeared. The final words floated over the land, carried by wind and wisdom alike. One day, truth will always find the deceitful, for even in silence, it never sleeps. The morning stretched wide and calm, carrying the scent of new beginnings. Each step along the dusty road spoke of lessons learned and wounds that had finally healed. The cane tapped softly, marking the rhythm of a heart no longer burdened by blindness. The path ahead glowed beneath the sun, golden and forgiving. A voice rose gently into the still air. "Tell me, children of the earth," it asked, "if you were in his shoes, would you still trust love once sight returned?" The question floated through the wind, circling the quiet trees and drifting into the hearts of all who heard. No one answered. The silence spoke instead, soft, endless, honest. It moved like breath through dry grass, leaving behind only thought and truth. He kept walking, each step steady and free. The morning sun fell over him like a blessing, turning his shadow into gold. The cane touched the ground once more, not to guide, but to remind. Once it belonged to a blind man. Now it followed a man who could finally see. The voice whispered, "He was blind once, but now he sees everything." Birds took flight overhead, their wings cutting across the sky, rising toward the light. Freedom followed them, and so did sight. The drums began to slow. Each beat softened, fading like the last breath of an old tale. The voice of the ancestors returned, deep and certain. In the land of men, eyes may close, but truth never sleeps. The rhythm grew faint, then vanished into the hush of dawn. The air turned warm and golden, wrapping every word, every sound, in peace. And as the light deepened, truth stood tall, awake, eternal, and watching.